The lawyers presented me with options, and I asked them if I needed to go to the NBI for the subpoena, and then they said that I have options not to go. I can send a letter, I can send a position paper, I can send an affidavit. And so we decided that a letter will be sent to the NBI. And then with regard to patas, I don't think magiging patas itong investigasyon na ito dahil kung nakita nyo naman yung mensahe ng Pangulo na sinabi niya na ganitong kriminal na mga, sorry hindi ko maalala yung exact words na sinabi, pero sinabi niya ganitong mga kriminal na ageist. Sinabi niya ganitong mga kriminal na gawain na hindi ko palalampasin. So, makita na natin, no, the pronouncements of the President, meron ng bias doon. And kung nakita niyo rin yung interview ng isang USEC ng Department of Justice, sinabi niya, a threat is a threat. Well, if you're a lawyer, you would argue na no, there's several kinds of threats, but nakita niyo na doon pa lang sinabi na niya kung ano yung position niya. At as a USEC of DOJ, we expect that that is the position of the Department of Justice. So kahit pa man pumunta ako doon, hindi ako pumunta doon, we believe, and I believe, that we, meaning the lawyers and I, believe that cases will be filed. So kahit pang sabihin nila na merong investigasyon, sa simula pa lang, nag-desisyon na sila na mag-file sila ng cases. Tinanong ko sa lawyer kung idadagdag ko pa ba yung affidavit ko. Sabi niya hindi na daw kasi nilagay ko naman na doon sa letter kung ano yung sasabihin ko sa affidavit. Ang worst case scenario, thank you Ma'am Sel, ang worst case scenario na nakikita namin is removal from office, impeachment, and then patong-patong na mga kaso, multiple cases to be filed, which the lawyers already told me to expect as well. That is why I just decided not to go to the NBI because clearly the pronouncements of the President and the USEC of DOJ point to cases to be filed. That could be as well, that is a possibility, ma'am, for cases that are without bail. And as I said, when I read the subpoena, I read there, it was for grave threats, na hindi naman grave threats yung ginawa ko under the revised penal code, and it was for anti-terror law. So napaisip ako, bakit anti-terror law ang iniimbestigahan nila? And then, so it's not the first time that I've heard of the anti-terror law used against a person. So the first time I read about it, they used it against Congressman Arnie Teves. So I inquired about what happened in Negros. So I was told, yun nga, there was a red notice, there was a AMLAC, freezing of assets, money, there was, well, a warrant of arrest, yes. And very recently, I read again the law, and then I found there that there is a provision there, removal from office. So on that point, it's still kumbaga an avenue, I think, that they're pursuing to remove me from office. So I do not plan to leave the country, or I do not plan to hide if there will be a warrant of arrest, mainly because my children are here. So if I am detained, I want to be able to still see my children. So I have no plans of doing that. I have no plans of leaving the country to hide. I think, well, first off, I'd like to thank Congressman Rodante Marcoleta for his offer to be my lawyer in the impeachment case. I appreciate it because he's a very good lawyer. He's a brilliant lawyer. In fact, he pointed out to me points during the committee hearing that as a lawyer, I was not able to see. So that shows his astuteness in the law. But I feel that he will better serve the country if he remains as a member of the House of Representatives. That is what is important right now. We need good public servants, good leaders, good officials in government. And I assure everyone that we already have lawyers helping us. In fact, the moment that Franz Castro announced last year that they are planning to file an impeachment, we already talked to lawyers who will handle the impeachment case at the time. But now, cases pala, 3. So we just need more lawyers. And we already discussed this with the first team that we hired as lawyers. Very recently, we had a meeting with the lawyers, and what was discussed there was the arrangements, because we needed more lawyers. We are expecting another impeachment case now, so this may be 3 impeachment cases. So, and then we will await official copy of the articles of impeachment, prepare the defense. We already have advanced copies of what is filed in the House of Representatives, and they're starting preparatory works right now. No, we're not confident with numbers, ma'am, because impeachment is a legal process and a political activity. So we are confident with the legal aspect of the impeachment because all the lawyers that I asked to review the initial drafts of the impeachment complaint really said that this is not, well, they would say it's not an impeachable offense, and this is not an actionable offense, things like that, lawyer talk. But with regard to politics, that is a different matter altogether. So we do not know what will happen. Well, that's politics. They always say that there are no permanent friends and enemies in politics. So it really depends on the person, on the politician, what path he will choose. We have an inventory of possible cases to be filed because right now it's only the 2 impeachment cases that are filed with the House of Representatives. All the other cases, we have a list, we have an inventory, and we have lawyers assigned for each case. Usually cases that are similar, we assign it to 1 lawyer. And then other cases, we assigned it to other lawyers so that we ensure that all the cases have lawyers focused on each case. Hindi pa kami nag-ausap ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. I expect na magkikita kami as usual sa December 24 sa bahay ng mother ko. Likely, baka doon namin mapag-usapan yan kung man mapag-usapan namin dahil madalas kasi kapag nagkasama-sama yung pamilya, lalo na pag nandyan yung mga apo, yung mga apo yung pinag-uusapan ng pamilya. Nagsabi si Pangulong Duterte na magpapadala siya ng pera para sa pambayad daw ng mga abogado kasi alam niya na napakaraming mga abogado ngayon ang kinuha para sa iba't ibang mga kaso. Pero nagsabi na rin ako through my brother, kasi yung kuya ko yung sinabihan niya, nagsabi ako na huwag na lang siya magpadala ng pera dahil nakapaghanda naman na kami para sa impeachment case. Kasi yung sinabi niya impeachment case. So sabi ko nakapaghanda kami sa impeachment case kasi nga last year nag-announce na si Franz Castro ng impeachment. So the moment na sinabi yon and the moment na nakita namin na tuloy-tuloy yung attacks against me, ay naghanda na rin kami para sa mga abogado. Not being evasive, if you are referring to the budget hearing and the hearings in the House of Representatives, I'm not being evasive. I am not answering the questions because they have no authority to ask confidential questions. I am answering questions about the use of the money in the Commission on Audit. And there is no, you ask the Commission on Audit if there was anything at all that they can say or see that we are not cooperative with the audit. So it is wrong to say that I am evasive. I am definitely not answering questions about the use of the fund, about confidential funds, because it pertains to national security and the lives of the people involved in intelligence operations. And yes, as I said, we have fully cooperated with the audit process of the Commission on Audit, who has the sole jurisdiction to ask questions about the use of confidential funds. In fact, 2/4 of the Department of Education are already cleared by the Commission on Audit, but it is still being questioned inside the committee in the House of Representatives. So that is the reason why I am not answering questions from the House of Representatives. Plus the fact that, as I said, it is an attack. It is a political attack. If you are in aid of legislation and you want to legislate about confidential funds, you do not target one office and terrorize and torment the employees of that office. What you do is you do a sampling, a random sampling of the offices who have confidential funds. Why not call the office of the president, who has billions and billions of confidential funds, if you want to legislate about confidential funds? So that shows that they're singling out the office of the vice president. And I really feel that it's very disrespectful to the office of the vice president. That is also why when they ask that I respect their process, you know, respect begets respect. So if they want respect, they should first respect the office of the vice president. That is what I was saying, that they don't like me, they don't like my person, they don't like Inday Sara Duterte, but they have to respect the office of the vice president. So if they want to investigate confidential funds, they don't single out one office. I will not explain. I will not give an explanation because it will entail that I explain intelligence operations, which will compromise officers who do intelligence operations. It will really compromise how they work. So no explanation will be given to the members of the House of Representatives. Transfer of confidential funds was from the contingent funds to the office of the vice president, and this was approved by the office of the president. The next year confidential funds was 2023. We submitted it to the Department of Budget and Management. It was approved by the Department of Budget and Management, and therefore it implies that it was approved by the office of the president because it was included in the National Expenditure Program, the NEP. So, and then it was approved by Congress as well. The only reason why we did not use the confidential funds in the fourth quarter for both offices because I was already flagged by a friend inside the House of Representatives that they will attack you using confidential funds. So yes, it was duly approved by the office of the president and both houses of Congress as well, as because it was included in the General Appropriations Act. So it was not, we presented it, we defended it, they approved it, we used it, and then the question on utilization is under the Commission on Audit. That is how the system works. They cannot use or they cannot twist the system according to their personal interests. Really, all these circumstances and events happening surrounding the office of the vice president is a race to the presidential election in 2028. Unfortunately, they are attacking the office as well. So, dyan ako medyo, and the personnel of the office of the vice president. So, dyan ako medyo pumapalag. Wala namang problema kung atakihin ninyo ako. Kasi politiko naman talaga ako. Pero may problema ako pag inatake yung opisina at yung mga kasamahan ko dito sa opisina ng pangalawang Pangulo na nagtatrabaho lang. Office of the Vice President is not the first time that the office was granted confidential funds. During the time of Vice President Binay, the office was already given confidential funds. The confidential funds we use in relation to our work and national security. all the projects and the programs of the Office of the Vice President target poverty alleviation. There is a direct correlation between poverty and national security. So what we do is we want to target the areas where we put our projects so that we achieve peace and order, security. So we don't want our projects put in areas where it is not needed for poverty alleviation. So we want to prioritize the areas. And the only way to do that is to use confidential funds to purchase information. So where are the target areas? We need that so that our projects will serve these areas. So that's why we needed the confidential funds. In the Department of Education, there is a correlation as well of education and national security. In fact, that is one of there is a correlation as well of education and national security. There are so many threats to education, not just insurgency, and threats to Department of Education personnel and students as well. And we wanted to target projects of the Department of Education as well in the most vulnerable areas and schools. That is why we needed confidential funds. It's all about national security. And the position of the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education is that national security is a holistic concept. It's not just one, like territorial defense, sovereignty. No, national security is about food security. It's about quality of education. It's about poverty alleviation and everything else that we need to do as a country to get us out of this poverty rut. The NDF LCAP, they are only about, ano meaning ng LCAP? And local armed conflict.
And local communist armed conflict.
And local, there, LCAP. So that is very specific to that local conflict and communism. So as I said, the projects and the programs of OVP target poverty alleviation, and there's so many factors affecting poverty, and there are so many threats to education, not just insurgency. That is true, but we work far faster if we are allowed to purchase information and target our projects immediately on the certain school or certain barangay or certain municipality. We move faster if we can target our projects.
Okay.
Nakalimutan ko yung sagot ko. Sandali. I cannot explain confidential funds because it will entail explaining intelligence operations. And there is a law that prohibits officials who gather information because of their office to divulge it in public. So it's the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. There is a specific provision of law. You cannot divulge confidential information that you received while in office.
So you won't even say these are
No, that's because
names.
that will add to cases that may be filed against me.
Affidavit.
Wait, hold on. I can answer. I can give you a very short answer with regard to ARs. I had nothing to do with the preparation of ARs. It went down to the grassroots level. So I had nothing to do with preparations of ARs. I was up here in the structure and money went down for information.
So you,
In the first place, we do not even know if these are ARs which came from DepEd or OVP to COA, because there's a chain of evidence supposedly. In law, there's a chain of evidence, handling of evidence. So right now, nobody can really answer that because nobody knows if these ARs are true. Because we don't know if it came from us.
that's what they're saying. That's what they're alleging.
Yes, that's what they're saying.
The OVP submitted to COA.
Yes, but there is a legal process in the custody of evidence. So right now, we really cannot say if the ARs came from us. Because the ARs that are with us has not been checked with the ARs that are with them.
You're denying that the ARs came.
No, I'm just saying that we do not even know if the ARs with us are the ARs that are with them. Because the ARs from the field, going to the office, going to COA, That's not how you do legal work. It's not how you do legal work. There's a very stringent process in evidence. That is why even if there is no law prohibiting a person from divulging confidential information, person cannot answer that because we do not know if that paper that they're holding was a paper that came from the OVP and DepEd. Because there was no marking of exhibits. That was what I was telling Congressman Chua. You cannot ask the OVP personnel to say yes or no to an exhibit that was not marked as real and true, as correct, and as a faithful reproduction of the evidence of the office. No, because there is no question about that from the Commission on Audit. It's only a congressman saying that this paper and asking what is this paper about. There is no case, and that is to ask that about the paper is the sole jurisdiction of the Commission on Audit.
So then if the Commission on Audit asks,
that is what I was saying. We have been fully cooperative with the Commission on Audit. Everything that they asked for, we submitted. That is why there was a partial disallowance only. And even then, we are not yet finished with the process because we can still submit documents that are required by the Commission on Audit. That is the problem right now. As I said, they are doing work that they are not that is not under the mandate of the House of Representatives. They cannot audit. They cannot question at all. They cannot make me answer and say that we represent the taxpayers and you have to answer. No, I will only answer to the Commission on Audit because that is the body who can ask us questions about the fund use. Well, we do not expect anything about the budget of the Office of the Vice President anymore. As I said, before I was saying that I am not the problem. I've been saying that I am not the problem. The problem of the Philippines is kahirapan, kagutuman, corruption, and all the other peace and order issues. But it is clear right now that they consider me as the problem already. So I will not help them solve the problem. Not discuss that. We need to wait for the budget call because the budget call outlines the rules of your proposal for budget for your office. So we need to read the budget call before we can sit down and discuss a budget proposal for the Office of the Vice President. I cannot answer that because there are rules. They usually put conditions in the budget call, and we really need to read the budget call to draft a proposed budget. Yes. Well, we have to see if we can continue with the projects that they are implementing. We need to see if the projects are still there, and then if they can still implement the projects. So that is something that we have to discuss with the Execom of the Office of the Vice President. Galing sa central office ng Office of the Vice President, wala kaming sinabi sa kanila. Pero since nababasa naman nila sa media yung nangyayari sa budget, I am sure that they are preparing themselves as well. Yes, wala pang update doon sa pull-out and replacement. Nag-aantay kami sa Armed Forces of the Philippines kung kailan nila gagawin yon. Yes, nagpadala ako ng letter sa Chief of Staff ng Armed Forces of the Philippines. Meron lang ako mga nilatag doon na mga requests. Pinakauna doon is hindi na kami tatanggap, hindi na ako tatanggap ng replacements. So kung magtanggal sila, hindi na nila i-replace. Iwan na lang nila kung ano yung maiwan, and kung wala mang maiwan dahil tatanggalin nila lahat, I already said that I will seek security arrangements outside of the Armed Forces of the Philippines already. So we are exploring private security services. Yes. So my husband, huh?
Will that be construed as a private?
No, because there are professional security services. So that's not considered as a private army. And I do not know if these individuals are allowed to bring guns. So that makes them less of an army mob kung wala silang baril. Hindi ko alam yung sa professional security services. But that is one option that we are preparing for in case there is a pull out of the entire security detail from the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Initially, I asked my husband, and then he said that he'll make arrangements.
Out of pocket lang. How much are you estimating to that?
Well, wala pa kaming we have not requested for proposals yet from service providers. We have not the things that you want to use against the person.
Mabalik ako ng mabilis lang.
Yes, sir.
Security ba? Kapag nag-hire ka ng mga private individuals, first time na mangyayari yan, sa ganitong klaseng set. Tapos umabot sa ganito at saka kung matuloy yun, that would give an impression mas makakatiwala ang mga sa mga private individuals. Kaysa doon sa mga people in the armed services.
Yes, sir. Kasi sila din naman yung gumawa nun, sir. Ang sinasabi ko lang naman sa kanila is, kasi sinasabi nila palitan, sir. Mahirap kasi, security is fundamentally a trust and confidence position. So it's difficult to entrust your life to somebody you really do not know, and that is, you just put there by somebody who you do not trust as well. So it's a very difficult position, and well, it's a very difficult position. And I actually pointed it out to the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. I told them that there is a line of succession. You're supposed to protect your number 2, your 1 and 2, because that is your reserve. Because one day, if you do not protect your 2, one day you have no 1. If you don't have a 2 and you don't have a 1, you don't have any 1. Diba? That is in the Constitution, and they are supposed to protect that line. Yung 400 plus, approximately 400 plus, it was combined PNP and AFP personnel. When the PNP pulled out all the personnel of the PNP, ang naiwan na lang is 334 AFP personnel, and not all of them are working for security. Some of them are working for admin, some of them are working for budget, some of them are working for supplies. So there's a lot of, there are several offices inside that unit that don't work for securing the person. They work for operations of the entire unit. So ilan lang dyan, sir, ang nasa security talaga. Yung like close-in security. Ay silang lahat, ma'am. I don't trust anyone right now except myself. Hindi ko na maalala. Ito lang nakaraan. I think this week siguro or last week. I don't trust my memory on that, pero very recently. Yes.
Thank you.
Sana naman next year na tayo magkita-kita ulit, ha? Sana naman sa January na, please. Ha? Yes, oo. Opo. But I'll be back January. Thank you.